May is Celiac Awareness Month. What is celiac disease? Well, stay tuned and you're about to find out. Our special guest this week is a two sport college athlete who balances academics and sports also while dealing with celiacs. Brooklyn plays soccer and is a high jumper at Capital University, a Division III school in Columbus, Ohio. Brooklyn, thanks a lot for hanging out with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, first of all, for people who may not understand, I'm going to pull up a website while you're talking. Uh, Explain what celiac disease is and how does it affect people?
So, celiac is an autoimmune disease that is genetic. So, somebody in my family gave it to me, and it's a gene that kind of activates at some point in your life. Sometimes it doesn't activate, and it kind of makes your body attack the gluten that you ingest. And whenever I was 17, my gene just activated, and since then I have had to stay away from it because whenever I eat it, it damages my small intestine, which can lead to a lot of long-term problems. It's a little different than your traditional like food allergy. It doesn't really cause like anaphylactic shock or anything like that. And sometimes people don't really get any symptoms from it, but it still does the damage and everybody reacts differently.
Wow, yeah, that's amazing. And obviously, as a college athlete, that must be very difficult. What are some of the challenges that you face as a college athlete dealing with celiacs?
I think the biggest challenge for me as a college athlete has been like learning how to fuel my body in a new environment, as well as just the travel games. Any away games is very difficult, trying to figure out what I can eat because after every soccer game and even track meets, we have to have lunch and dinner catered to us because we're there for so long. And it's just kind of difficult to figure out what you can have there and communicating with your coaches and it just kind of depends on where you go, and sometimes you go to the middle of nowhere and they only have Chipotle. So,
Yeah, I can imagine, and I know just being a college athlete, it's difficult enough to find things to eat, places to go on those road trips, and so it must be really difficult when you're dealing with things like what you're talking about. Also, real quick, just explain to people there's various levels of celiacs, correct? So you're very sensitive, but people can have all kinds of variations. Is that correct?
mhm. My best friend's sister has it, and she does not get nearly as sick as I do when she eats gluten. And when I eat gluten, I'm sick for weeks. Other people also get very different, like, consequences from eating it or different I don't really know what word I'm looking for, like I'm blanking, but
Just different
different, like,
effects.
reactions, yeah. Which I also thought was very interesting because I thought that everybody would react the same. But there's something called, I think, invisible celiac, where people have it and they can be extremely sensitive and their body doesn't react to it at all. Like they don't feel sick, they don't get bloated, like they don't get the typical symptoms, and it just still does the same amount of damage. Every person that has celiac receives the same amount of damage when they eat gluten, but everybody reacts differently. So it kind of took me a long time to get tested because they didn't really know what was going on. Like at first I thought it was my appendix or maybe I had like Crohn's or something. I guess it's not super common to be tested for that if you're sick, but I was sick for so long that they just thought, "Oh, maybe it's this." And that's what it ended up being.
And now you're still working on it. I'm sure it's something you continue to learn about and try to figure out as you go along. But try to explain to people, how are there moments when you kind of alluded to earlier when you're traveling with your team, whether it's soccer, track, it's got to be difficult. But are there moments that affect your performance? As a soccer player, as a high jumper, where maybe you don't feel like you normally should.
I definitely think the biggest things that I've realized the past couple years is after I get sick, it takes so long for my body to like fully recover and feel like it's fully functioning again that it's difficult to go to school all day and go to practice all day. And one of the biggest symptoms that I have is fatigue when I get sick. And I've also noticed that my first week on college campus, it was preseason. So we had 2 2-hour practices a day. It was 100 degrees. It was a lot. And all that I had in the dining hall was rice and broccoli because of miscommunication with the dining hall people. So that definitely like affected my ability to perform as well as I wanted to, especially being a freshman and wanting to do good. It just definitely took a toll on my body.
I can only imagine, and, we didn't really talk about this yet beforehand, but, you go to Capital University, a Division III school in Columbus, Ohio. How has that transition been with the cafeteria? Do you feel like they've done a pretty good job,
I
with
feel like
everything, how
as
they
the year
handle it?
went on, yeah, it definitely got better. At the beginning, whenever I decided to go to Capital, we had lots of meetings like prior to, because like I said, I got diagnosed when I was 17 and I was already thinking about colleges and going on visits. And whenever I decided, oh, I'm going to Capital, we knew they had this allergy-free kitchen. So it's free of the top 9 allergens, I believe, which makes it very, I mean, that's great. It has no, everything that I eat there is safe. So I feel very like confident in what I'm eating, but also being like a vegetarian, there's not many options. So we had to have meetings with them going into the year, and we planned that they were going to make me these things and do these things for me, and it just didn't really work out. But then as the year went on, it definitely got better, and I think they've definitely communicate a little bit better on what I was allowed to have and what they could provide for me with what they had at the school, which I was not really I was under the impression that they were gonna bring in new stuff, but it worked out in the end.
Well, that's great to hear. Yeah, it's great to hear being away at college is, tough for anybody. So it's nice to hear that, they're so helpful with that. I'm sure it can be very challenging still. But if you're just tuning in, we're here with Brooklyn. She's a Division III college athlete dealing with celiac disease. Again, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Straight from the Training Ground, the podcast where we share our love for the beautiful game and the people out in our communities doing beautiful things. And Brooklyn, you're obviously doing some beautiful things because we're going to get to that here in a minute. But before I skip ahead, not only just being a two-sport athlete, but as an older, college athlete now that you are, what kind of advice do you have to younger people out there who, as more and more people are getting discovered, like you said earlier, with celiac disease? What advice do you have to them? I'm sure it's stressful and maybe they're apprehensive or think it might hold them back.
I definitely think my like the thing that was most impactful for my transition to having celiac was Instagram. And I feel like that's kind of silly, like social media, but there's so many people like all over the country that post like new certified gluten-free things, which that's kind of confusing to explain, but for me, I have to eat things that are certified gluten-free because that means there's less than 10 parts per million of wheat in the like item of food, which means that I can have that and it will not affect me or make me sick. And sometimes when you go to the store, especially when I live in a very like rural community, there's not very many options, and I just really like seeing these new products. Like there are new certified gluten-free Uncrustables, and I don't even remember the last time I had an Uncrustable, but I haven't found them yet, but I'm very excited to get my hands on those. And I just like seeing those new things that are coming out. And I feel like as time goes on, more and more things are coming out. People are making new things, and it's not really as difficult as I feel like it would have been like 20 years ago, but there's definitely new inventions that make it a lot easier.
And also, I'm glad you said that. Mention to everybody, gluten free is kind of a popular health craze, right?
Mhm.
That people choose to be gluten free. But just because something that you buy at the store is marked gluten free, why don't you explain further to what that means,
Yeah, so
or
if
may
you
or may not
see
mean?
like a package of chips and it just says gluten-free on it, that doesn't mean that it's safe for people with celiac because celiac people are allergic to cross-contamination. So when I live at home, we have all separate pots and pans for my food because if my parents make a regular pizza on a pan, I can't then put my pizza back on that same pan because if some breadcrumbs get into my pizza, it'll make me sick. It's even as small as a piece of a breadcrumb that can, like, affect somebody with celiac. So the certification means that there is no chance of that even being there and that it's made in a gluten-free facility and everything, so it's safe. And I have no, like, anxiety around it or anything. I know that I can have it and it won't make me sick.
Very cool. Well, and I know that because, spoiler alert, if you're unaware, Brooklyn also happens to be my daughter. So thank you for staying tuned this far to learn that much about us. But so I'm very well aware of her trials and tribulations in dealing with this. And Brooklyn, another thing though that we're all very proud of you for doing is you're also, you mentioned the community that's out there, which I think is important for anybody that watches this, whether you play sports or not, to reach out on Instagram, social media, because there's a great community of people like yourself and others who uh, kind of try to share ideas, new
Mhm.
products, experiences, right? So tell everybody about what you're doing to help promote celiac awareness or just to help the community.
So I have an Instagram and a website called Celiac Striker. It's kind of up in the running. It's not very active, but there's some posts. But I use it to kind of share things like places that I've been to that I know are celiac safe, or certain recipes that I've made that I definitely recommend, because some gluten-free stuff is not very good. So I really try to figure out what tastes like the most normal, I guess, or make some new things and see if my gluten eating family approves, because sometimes it's not very good. But I definitely want to get that kind of up and running and continue to share that stuff, because it also helps when we go on vacations or things like that, or like soccer tournaments for club, where we have to look up places that I can eat in that town. And there's Instagrams of like, oh, what to eat in Colorado or New York. And it's just pages and pages of like restaurants that are safe. I think that that would definitely help people.
So you're building part of that community yourself, and I think what I hear, and just from helping you through all of this as a parent, it's important to reach out to use other resources. You give
Mhm.
reviews also, correct? Like when you go to
Mhm.
some place and it's successful and you feel safe there, you use your Instagram page, which
Mhm.
to post reviews to help other people, correct?
Yeah, because I mean, as someone with celiac, it's very kind of nerve-wracking to go out to eat at a place that's not 100% gluten-free, because you never know if what's going on in the kitchen. Like, you never know if it'll be completely safe. And I feel like just seeing that other people with celiac have said, "Oh, yes, this is safe, you won't get sick," like, it just kind of takes that weight off your shoulders, because every time that someone with celiac gets sick, you increase your risk of colon cancer and intestinal cancer, which is obviously horrible. It can also cause infertility, lots of like long-term issues. So it's really important that you take care of yourself, and you obviously don't want to be sick because it's miserable. So just like knowing that you can go somewhere and it's safe. That's why I love Bibibop, because it kind of makes you feel normal. You just go in there and you don't have to say like, "Oh, I have an allergy," or "Can you change your gloves?" It's just I know that it's safe.
Yeah, that's gotta be great to know those kind of things, like you said, and not to have to make any special requests or things like that. So, Brooklyn, again, thanks a lot for joining us. Very proud of you as a parent, and welcome to again, if you're still watching this for some reason, for staying tuned to a special episode of Straight from the Training Ground with Brooklyn, who happens to be my daughter also, and is a two-sport athlete at Capital University in Columbus, Ohio, where she plays soccer and is a high jumper on the track team while dealing with celiac. So, Brooklyn, we really appreciate everything. Keep up the great work. And we also will put links down below to your Instagram page for everyone to check out. And again, anyone out there that might watch this is dealing with this as well. Please not only reach out to Brooklyn, but also, look up different various websites and Instagram pages out there as well, because as she alluded to, there's a growing community every day, a lot of great resources for people. So, Brooklyn, thanks again. Keep up the great work. And thanks a lot for joining us.